It don't even sound. I want to put her on blast because she was telling me, she was saying to me that what I was asking for was crazy, and they wasn't spending money like that. I'm talking about you got footage, you got clothing, you got. I was doing footage. I had pictures, all the stuff that I had. You could figure out a way to pay a brother, stuff like that. And then I was telling her about some prices that I've already received, and I had the invoices to show it. And then she was calling me like I was lying. I was like, yo, who do you think you talking to? You know what I'm saying? And she was talking about, there's no way nobody paid. Nobody what? I say, first of all you people come with these documentaries and stuff, the first thing you tell me, y'all tell these people out here that y'all don't pay, and y'all pay. If you can make a picture look like $10,000, $15,000, you know what I'm saying? You can sit here and tell me that you're gonna pay me for my time sitting right down here with y'all. You understand? So then, one thing led to another, and I was like, all right, well then, F you, I spoke to 50, and then she said 50, and this is exact words that came out her mouth. 50 does not determine what.
It started with a sentence that wasn't supposed to go public. A quiet claim from a man who's been around long enough to know where the bodies are buried and which stories never make it to the screen. According to Gene Deal, what you saw in the Diddy documentary wasn't the full story. It was the clean version. The safe version. And the parts that didn't make the cut? Those are the ones that could have changed everything. If you thought you'd seen it all, think again. This is celebrity press, where secrets explode before your eyes. The internet couldn't believe it, and you won't either. Because the moment Gene Deal started talking, fans started asking why 50 Cent suddenly went quiet on certain details. Why some scenes felt rushed. Why others never appeared at all. Names like Diddy and 50 Cent don't exist in a vacuum. Every move comes with pressure, politics, and people who don't want certain truths replayed on a global screen. So let me ask you something. If you were in this position, same betrayal, same pressure, same threats behind the scenes, what would you do? One comment summed it up perfectly. Bro said too much and somebody panicked. So let's break it all down. Slowly. Carefully. Because trust me, it gets uglier. Before the documentaries, before the headlines, before the reaction videos and think pieces flooded timelines, there was a version of this story that lived strictly behind closed doors. No cameras. No edits. No damage control. Just conversations that weren't meant to be replayed, and memories that certain people hoped would stay buried forever. Gene Deal has never been the polished, PR-friendly voice in hip-hop history. He's always been the guy who speaks like the cameras are off, like the lawyers aren't listening, like consequences are someone else's problem. And that's exactly why, when he started hinting that something major was missing from the Diddy documentary, people leaned in instead of scrolling past. According to Gene, the documentary didn't lie. It just didn't tell everything. And in the world of celebrity storytelling, what you leave out can be louder than what you show. The tension, Gene claims, didn't start during filming. It started long before cameras ever rolled. Quiet conversations. Side comments. Questions that were asked once, then never again. He suggests there were topics that immediately made people uncomfortable. Stories that shifted the mood in the room the moment they came up. That's usually the first red flag. Fans online began rewatching the documentary with new eyes. Scenes that felt abrupt. Transitions that jumped too fast. Moments where Gene himself appeared to stop mid-thought, as if something had been trimmed around his words. One viral comment read, "That edit was doing gymnastics." Behind the scenes, according to online speculation, there were disagreements about tone. About how raw things should really get. About which chapters of the past were necessary and which were suddenly labeled irrelevant. And when powerful names are involved, irrelevant usually means dangerous. Gene hinted that certain recollections were filmed, then quietly removed. Not because they were false, he claims, but because they opened doors no one wanted reopened. Old alliances. Old grudges. Old behavior that doesn't age well under modern scrutiny. Around this time, alleged private messages began circulating in fan forums. Nothing confirmed. Just fragments. One message that caught fire read, "That part can't air. It'll spiral." Another claimed, "We already gave them enough." Whether real or not, the wording alone fed the narrative that limits were set. And then there was 50 Cent. Publicly, 50 stayed in control. Calm. Strategic. Online, though, fans noticed something unusual. He joked about everything except one subject. When asked directly about what was cut from the documentary, his responses were vague. Deflective. A sharp contrast to his usual blunt style. As one tweet put it, 50 don't dodge unless there's heat. Gene Deal didn't accuse. He implied. He framed it as disappointment rather than outrage. But sometimes disappointment says more than anger. He suggested that the final product didn't reflect the full weight of what really happened behind the scenes during certain eras. That the story was softened. Sanded down. The phrase "cut for a reason" started trending. Reaction channels jumped on it instantly. Some defended 50, arguing documentaries always have edits and time limits. Others weren't convinced. They pointed out that time is always found for drama unless the drama points in the wrong direction. One sarcastic creator summed it up perfectly. Funny how the most important parts always end up on the cutting room floor. As speculation grew, Gene reportedly received backlash. Not loud. Not public. Quiet pressure. The kind that doesn't leave receipts. People close to the situation allegedly warned him to be careful how far he pushed the narrative. Because once you imply censorship, you also imply fear. Fans began asking a bigger question. If the documentary was supposed to be the truth, who decided what truth was acceptable? Old clips resurfaced. Interviews from years ago where Gene said things that now felt incomplete. Statements that suddenly made sense when viewed through the lens of omission. One clip in particular went viral, where Gene paused, laughed awkwardly, and said, "That's a story for another day." People started asking why that day never came. Meanwhile, blogs ran with anonymous sources close to production claiming there were intense debates during editing. Scenes allegedly removed after last-minute concerns. No names. No confirmations. Just enough smoke to keep the fire alive. The narrative shifted fast. This wasn't about one documentary anymore. It was about who controls legacy in hip-hop. Who gets to decide what history remembers? And who benefits when certain chapters stay unwritten? Gene's tone, according to viewers, changed slightly with each appearance. Less playful. More deliberate. Like someone measuring every word while still trying to say enough. That alone convinced many fans something real was sitting just beneath the surface. And the most unsettling part? Gene suggested that what was cut wasn't just embarrassing. It was destabilizing. The kind of truth that doesn't just trend, it forces reactions. By the end of that week, one idea had taken over the conversation completely. Whatever didn't make it into that documentary wasn't removed to protect the audience. It was removed to protect someone else. But what came next, even his enemies didn't expect. Once Gene Deal's comments started circulating, the internet didn't just react, it mobilized. This wasn't casual gossip anymore. This was fans, bloggers, and former insiders digging through timelines like it was a cold case that suddenly reopened itself. Clips were slowed down. Edits were analyzed frame by frame. People weren't asking what was shown anymore. They were asking what was missing. According to online speculation, the first thing people noticed was how carefully the documentary danced around certain years. Entire eras felt compressed. Stories that usually came with raw emotion were summarized in seconds. One creator pointed out that moments which should have carried weight were reduced to transitions, almost like someone was rushing past a landmine. Then came the alleged messages. Screenshots started floating around claiming to show conversations between unnamed producers and contributors. Nothing verified. Nothing officially confirmed. But the wording alone was enough to fuel suspicion. One message read, "That part opens too many doors." Another said, "We already pushed it far enough." Whether real or not, those phrases hit a nerve because they matched the energy viewers felt while watching. Gene Deal didn't say the documentary was fake. He didn't say it was propaganda. He said it was incomplete. And in hip-hop, incompleteness is dangerous because it allows myths to survive while truths get buried. Reaction channels took sides instantly. Some defended 50 Cent, pointing out that documentaries aren't confession booths. They're products. They're edited. They're strategic. Others weren't buying it. They argued that when you brand something as the real story, cutting key moments becomes misleading by default. And then the conversation took a darker turn. A former associate, speaking anonymously on a blog, claimed there were discussions about removing content that could shift public perception permanently. That phrase alone set timelines on fire. Because permanent shifts don't come from petty drama. They come from patterns. From behavior that doesn't survive modern scrutiny. Sarcasm flooded the discourse. Because nothing screams artistic vision like a last-minute edit, one tweet read. Another said, "Crazy how the truth always runs out of screen time." Meanwhile, 50 Cent's silence became louder than any denial. Fans noticed he continued posting, joking, trolling, just not about Gene's claims. No direct response. No dismissal. No clapback. For someone known to address everything head-on, the absence felt intentional. That's when speculation about pressure started gaining traction. People began asking whether certain scenes were removed to avoid legal complications, or to avoid reigniting old conflicts that powerful people preferred to keep dormant. The idea that money, influence, or reputation could shape what truth looks like on screen didn't sound far-fetched to anyone paying attention. Gene Deal added fuel by hinting that the cut content wasn't just stories, it was context. Connections. Sequences of events that made other events make sense. Without them, the narrative felt safer. Cleaner. Less threatening. Then came the alleged leaked audio rumor. A supposed unreleased clip where Gene reportedly went deeper into an incident that never made the final cut. The clip never surfaced. But the rumor alone exploded. Fans asked why it vanished so quickly. Why no one ever uploaded it? Why accounts claiming to have it suddenly went private? That's when another name started creeping into the conversation. Not shouted. Not highlighted. Just mentioned quietly in threads, then deleted. Someone who had appeared around the same time period the documentary rushed past. Someone with influence, access, and a reputation for controlling narratives behind the scenes. No confirmations. Just enough repetition to make people uncomfortable. Blogs began writing cautiously worded pieces. Another figure may have influenced final edits, one headline read. Another asked, who benefits most from what was left out? No accusations. Just implications. The fan reaction split again. Some felt Gene was exposing a long-standing problem in celebrity storytelling. Others accused him of stirring controversy for relevance. But even critics admitted one thing. The edits felt intentional. As one viral comment put it, you don't accidentally remove the same kind of story over and over. The tension peaked when a supposed production insider posted a single sentence before deleting their account. There were scenes we were told not to revisit. That was it. No explanation. No follow-up. But it was enough. Suddenly, this wasn't about Gene versus 50. It was about control. About who decides which version of history survives. About how documentaries can become shields instead of spotlights. And just when people thought the conversation couldn't get heavier, a new rumor dropped that the cut content wasn't destroyed. It was archived. Stored away. Locked behind agreements. Waiting for a moment when releasing it would cause maximum disruption. But just when we thought it was over, another name came up. The moment that second name entered the discussion, the tone shifted completely. This wasn't playful speculation anymore. This was discomfort. The kind that makes people delete posts instead of doubling down. The kind that makes creators suddenly add disclaimers where there were none before. According to online theories, this person wasn't a background figure. They were someone who had been around for years. Someone who understood optics, damage control, and timing better than anyone else in the room. Someone whose involvement would explain why certain truths were considered too complicated for the final cut. Fans started revisiting everything. Old interviews. Award show interactions. Public moments that once seemed normal but now felt rehearsed. One creator said it best. Once you see the edit, you can't unsee it. Gene Deal, meanwhile, appeared increasingly cautious. His tone shifted from explosive to deliberate. Not backing down, just choosing words carefully. That alone told viewers everything. People who feel safe don't suddenly measure their sentences. The pressure wasn't just online. According to speculation, industry insiders began distancing themselves quietly. Invitations dried up. Calls went unanswered. Support turned neutral. Neutral turned silent. Silence turned suspicious. And then came the claim that changed how many people viewed Gene entirely. An anonymous post alleged that Gene had been warned, not threatened, warned. That continuing to push the narrative would have consequences. Not legal. Not violent. Reputational. Professional. The kind that ends careers quietly. Whether true or exaggerated, the idea resonated because it matched the pattern people were watching in real time. The internet began asking a different question. Not what was cut, but why now? Why Gene? Why speak up after the documentary dropped? Some believed it was frustration. Others believed it was timing, that once the story was out, silence became complicity. The most chilling theory suggested Gene wasn't trying to expose anyone. He was trying to correct the record before it became permanent. Because once a documentary cements a narrative, it becomes history. And history is hard to undo. As speculation grew, sympathy crept into the conversation. People wondered if Gene was wrestling with regret. With the idea that staying quiet earlier helped build a version of events that protected the wrong people. Reaction videos slowed down. Less jokes. More analysis. Creators started saying things like, "This feels unfinished." And unfinished stories make people uneasy. Then, without warning, Gene went quiet. No new interviews. No follow-ups. No clarifications. Just silence. That silence spoke volumes. Some saw it as confirmation that pressure worked. Others believed something bigger was coming. The kind of reveal that doesn't drop casually, it detonates. One final rumor pushed the story into its most unsettling phase. That unreleased footage wasn't just controversial. It was destabilizing. That showing it would force people to answer questions they've avoided for decades. That it would change how certain figures are remembered permanently. And that once released, there would be no editing the narrative back into safety. As one comment put it, you can survive rumors. You can't survive receipts. Whether that footage ever sees the light of day remains unknown. But the impact of its absence is already clear. The story feels incomplete. And incomplete stories haunt people more than endings ever could. Gene Deal didn't disappear physically. He faded strategically. Stepping back just enough to let the questions echo without answers. And the secrets didn't fade with him. They lingered. Untouched. Unreleased. Waiting. Right now, this story is sitting in a place that should make everyone uncomfortable. Not because everything you've heard is proven fact, but because too many pieces don't add up. When someone says parts of the story were cut, archived, or quietly pushed aside, the real question isn't what was removed, it's who needed it gone. Think about it. Documentaries are supposed to shine light, not shape shadows. And yet here we are, talking more about what we didn't see than what we did. That alone tells you this situation isn't finished, it's paused. So now it's on you. If you were in Gene Deal's position, knowing certain details never made it to the screen, knowing history might be rewritten in real time, would you stay quiet? Or would you speak up, even if it meant pressure, backlash, or people suddenly distancing themselves? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Do you think the cuts were just creative decisions, or strategic protection? Do you believe unreleased footage really exists? And if it does, should it ever be made public? Read through the comments. Challenge each other. Compare timelines. Because discussion is the one thing that keeps stories like this from being quietly buried. And make no mistake, this isn't over. When stories end this abruptly, it usually means something bigger is being held back. Sources go quiet. People measure their words. And silence becomes louder than denial. So hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because if that archived footage ever surfaces, even a fragment, it won't just reopen the conversation. It will flip the entire narrative upside down. Stay locked in. Stay questioning. Because the truth doesn't always disappear. Sometimes, it's just waiting for the right moment to be heard.